Hallo zusammen, Jan hier von der Programmier.bar. Wie ihr vielleicht mitbekommen habt, waren einige von unserem Team im Juli auf dem We Are Developers World Kongress in Berlin. Ein Grund natürlich, warum wir so Veranstaltungen immer besuchen, ist, dass wir immer auf der Suche nach coolen und interessanten Speakerinnen für euch und den Podcast sind. Und auch dieses Mal waren wir erfolgreich. Dennis und Garrett haben ein sehr interessantes Gespräch mit Emil Sjölander geführt. Emil ist Director of Engineering bei Figma und hat zum Beispiel dort den Developer-Modus mit gebaut, eingeführt, wie auch immer. Aber Emil spricht kein Deutsch, wie die allermeisten Schweden wahrscheinlich so. Aber er spricht sehr gutes Englisch. Also hatten wir einen Plan. Wir nehmen eine Folge auf Englisch auf und veröffentlichen die dann mit unseren und Emils AI geklonten Stimmen auf Deutsch. Natürlich hätten wir euch gesagt, dass das hier AI generiert ist und wir hätten das mal getestet, wie das so funktioniert. Aber wir haben verschiedene Tools und Services zur Übersetzung ausprobiert. Wir haben sie getestet, rumprobiert, intensiv uns damit beschäftigt. Aber am Ende waren wir wirklich mit keinem dieser Ergebnisse so wirklich zufrieden, weil wir schon eigentlich so einen hohen Qualitätsanspruch hier bei der Programmierbar haben und ihr da draußen sicherlich auch beim Zuhören. Die Tools scheitern einfach sehr oft daran, dass es zu viele Speaker auf einmal sind, dass die Aufnahmen zu lang sind, dass Hintergrund- und Störfaktoren drin sind und deshalb hat es nicht so gut geklappt, wie wir uns das eigentlich erhofft haben. Aber wir wollten die Folge halt auch irgendwie nicht im Papierkorb verschwinden lassen und deshalb machen wir heute mal eine Ausnahme und veröffentlichen eine englischsprachige Folge in unserem ansonsten sehr deutschen Podcast-Feed. Also lasst uns gerne wissen, wie ihr das findet. Wie gesagt, das war jetzt mal so als Ausnahme geplant, aber wenn ihr das alle cool findet und euch vielleicht gar nicht so stört, wie wir das erwarten, dann ist das ja vielleicht was wir für coole Speakerinnen doch ab und zu mal als Ausnahme wiederholen könnten. Also lasst euch überraschen und jetzt erstmal viel Spaß mit Dennis, Garrett und vor allem mit Emil. Bis bald.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Programmier.bar podcast. I'm very excited today because it's a special episode. We are currently at the We Are Developers conference. My name is Dennis. I'm here with Garrett from the Programmier.bar. Garrett,
Hello.
nice that you're here. And we have a special guest today in the house, Emil Sjölander, or pronounce your name yourself. What would be the best
Original
pronouncing?
would be Emil Sjölander. I'm from Sweden, but I go by Emil Sjölander, really.
All right.
Haven't lived in Sweden in a while.
Emil, you're Director of Engineering at Figma. It's very great to have you here.
Thank you. Super fun.
Yes, and we're actually in a little tiny house just at the conference, which is a nice space where we,
About the size of my student accommodation a while back, you know?
Where did you sleep then?
You
missing
know,
a bed here.
Wherever, on the couch.
All right, cool. Emil, tell us a bit about you. First of all, I would say, get to know you. So you already said you're original from Sweden, but you didn't stay in Sweden all the time, and you're not in Sweden right now, right?
Yeah, no, moving around a lot, born in Sweden, but moved out to Vienna, actually. Forgotten most of the German, but moved out to Vienna when I was 2 years old, lived there for 4 years, then to Groningen in the Netherlands for 2 years, spent 4 years after that in San Diego in California, thus the American accent. And after which I moved back to Sweden, did school there, went to way north in Sweden to do university, after which I moved to Palo Alto in California for, call it a year or two, to do some internships over there. Happened to get a job there at Meta, or then Facebook, I guess, but the visa process was long to go to the US, so they said, we have a London office. I said, sure. And then a couple weeks later, I moved to London, where I've been for the past 10 years.
All right, so quite some time already.
Quite some time.
Do you have any favorite place where you say?
I personally loved San Diego. It's too far away from friends and family to live there. But weather is great. It's ocean is close by. San Diego is a fantastic place, and I've visited since. And it's funny. I visited 20 years after I lived there, nothing had changed in a good way.
It's a good thing, right? Yeah. But what did you study in Sweden?
I studied interaction design. So I think interaction design as a university degree looks extremely different from every university. So at my university, it was essentially computer science, but they deleted all the low-level programming and inserted design. So I did not do like, low-level kind of assembly, understanding like how CPUs worked or anything that. I did all the like, JavaScript and all the like algorithms, AI, all of that kind of computer science. But instead of doing all the low-level courses, I studied design. So I think that was a perfect mix. And it was, just happened to get kind of on that track. Originally, I was planning to take some time off before university. And in the middle of the summer of that, like after high school, I thought to myself, I don't want to work at McDonald's or something like that, right? It's like, I regret my decision. I do want to go to university. So but they had already closed all the applications. So I called up to every university, and there's one university in way north of Sweden who was like, well, we have this like new program, interaction design. So not a lot of people applied to it. So there's like 2 spots open. I guess you could take one of those. And I'm like, cool. Next week, I moved to the north of Sweden to study something I'd never heard of. Turned out great.
That's great.
Nice.
So have you been in contact with technology before? Was it something that was part of your life before, or did it really happen afterwards?
Yeah, I think we're all in touch with technology if you're kind of around our age, right?
Yeah.
From the start. But I'm not one of these kids that started programming when they were 7. I mean, I do remember I liked games. I wanted to program games. And I got my mom to buy me a book on like C++ game development. And that lasted around 2 hours before I was like, no. And then I didn't touch it again until university.
Yeah.
But throughout kind of growing up, I was a weird kid in many ways, but always tinkering with technology in different ways. But what really spoke to me when I learned about this interaction design course was like, remembered a time in my life when I got my first cell phone, actually, or second cell phone or whatever. I'd gone to the store to buy a phone I'd saved up for myself. And so I wanted it to be good, right? I'd use my own money on it. I ended up returning that phone to the store to get a new one 10 times. Because every time I bought it, within a week, I was like, when I press the down button, it sometimes lags for a second. The phone is broken. And after 10 times, the store employee was like, phones are just slow, deal with it. But that got me really interested in, software experience, performance, and like actually like making good user experience, because I didn't know enough at the time. I thought the thing was broken. No, they just like designed it badly. And that's something I think back on a lot.
But was it always the same phone, or were it different phones?
No, the same phone. I was this one's broken, right?
Yeah,
I didn't understand the concept of bad design at the time.
Yeah.
I was maybe 11, 12. So I didn't have the concept of bad design.
Yeah.
I just understood it was broken, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a hardware fault, because that was the only concept I had in my head. Something's broken, I must get a new version of it.
Okay, that's great. It shows that you have had a natural feeling for this user interaction already.
Yeah. Exactly. I didn't know it at the
age.
time, right? Yeah. But definitely been with me a long time.
Okay, awesome.
And you picked up the book again in university and made the C++ game?
No. C++, I actually didn't write a lot of C++ until like the last year of university. But then I did make some games.
Okay,
and
nice.
like I went to course in like, graphics programming. So that was super fun.
It's typically games then.
Typically games, yeah.
I like that.
Before we get into Figma, of course, more and what you do now, what maybe to a short summary of what you did after university. So what was your path to your current role?
Yeah, so path started with open source, or take the full path. It started with me being hungover in bed And I was like, I want something to do. And I had been doing an internship in Sweden. This was maybe year 2 of university or something like that. So I texted my coworker from that internship. I wasn't at the internship anymore, but I was like, hey, I'm looking to program something. I mean, I'd been up, like, since I found out about programming in university, like, I skipped most of my classes because I spent like 20 hours a day just coding stuff. So that was fun. But so I texted my friend or colleague from this internship, and I was like, it's a Sunday, I'm in bed, I just want to program something, but I have no ideas. I'm like, what problems are you facing now that I could just help with for free, basically? And he had this problem of like, okay, we're working for this client on an Android app, and we want this specific UI interaction that, we don't really know how to do. I was like, challenge accepted. So I built it in like a couple of hours. And then I was like, I tried to email it to him, and it was like the project was too big for Gmail. So I was like, how do I send this? I've heard about this GitHub thing. So I'll create a free GitHub account, and like the free accounts require you to have it open source. At the time, I think they have like free private now, but the time was open source. Yeah. So it's like, put it up there. Here's the link. Forgot about it. It's like 2 weeks later, one of the like top at the time influencers in the Android community found it, tweeted about it, saying like, this is like one of the best like new things, and started contributing to it. And like my phone was buzzing for like 3 days straight with notifications. So it's like awesome. Blew up, started to be used by like Snapchat and their app, Tumblr, like all these big things. And from that, I got kind of the bug for doing more and more open source work. So built more and more libraries. And that's when, like, towards the end of my university time, I actually woke up one morning, and it was like just random coincidence, had like 3 like Palo Alto based like startups contact me at the same day. I don't know why the same day, right? About internships. And I was like, wow, fun. So I kind of did my first kind of interviews there, and thanks to this open source, kind of got my way into that scene. So moved to Palo Alto, kind of ended up being like a 3-month internship that extended to like a year and a half, or did some remote from Sweden, went back there, etc. Got to know a ton of great people there, some of whom I'm still very good friends with today. I've co-invested in stuff with. It's actually, I interned at the same company where Dylan, our CEO, used to intern as well. We didn't intern at the same time, but I interned like, I think a year after him. Fantastic company. I learned a ton there and got to just know the industry and the people there. So that's really how I started. And then from there, was in my last year of university, so started interviewing at new places. That's how I got in touch with Facebook, or Meta now, I guess. And got a position there. Had moved to London for the position, but was excited to do that. And spent roughly 3 years there working on, I want to say like core infrastructure for mobile. So worked on the team building things like React Native, Litho, Component Kit, really like the core fundamentals that power all of Facebook's mobile suite. Mainly working on a library called Yoga, which was like Flexbox for mobile, essentially, which powers all the layout across all of Facebook's apps. And then started to get into building developer tools as well for internal use at Facebook, which also was very successful internally there. And after a while, I just felt like, okay, I've done my thing here. And I evaluated, maybe I stay, do a new thing there. But I felt I'm young. I want to try starting my own company. So I did that with a friend from university, and this company was called Visly, and we wanted to build really a design tool that was tailored to engineers, because we believed, and I mean, I'm here working at what I am, so I still very much believe this, that engineers are really key to the design process. It's not just designers doing design. Engineers are really key to that, but the design tools at the time were not really optimized for engineers. Engineers would really spend most of the time just copy pasting value from design tools, and these were hard to use for engineers and so forth. So we really wanted to start kind of a design tool like really focused on engineers. It was Visly, did like Y Combinator and a couple of those kind of startup-y things. And after 2.5 years, it got in kind of conversations with Figma. Again, like had a lot of friends or mutual connections there, and it just felt right to kind of pursue this path together with Figma. And that's how I've been at Figma for the past 4.5 years, building what we call developer tools at Figma. So it's really kind of tools for developers coming into Figma. Even though like a lot of people see Figma as a design tool, and it is, right? It is not a tool for just designers. It's really the design process and product building process, right? And actually a third or 30% of our audience or people coming into Figma are developers. So it's this huge audience that really deserves a better experience as they're working with designers and other people on their team to bring products to life. And we're just really excited to make that experience as good as possible and support engineers through the whole product development lifecycle from ideation to building and shipping.
And what happened with the ideas from Visly? Did they get into Figma, or what happened with the company?
Yeah, I mean, the company was acquired by Figma.
Okay.
And many of the ideas there live on, right?
Okay. That's great.
Do you think it shaped Figma, or did Figma already have this perspective on developer?
Yeah, Figma's had this perspective from day one. I think this is what really kind of collaboration is at the heart of Figma from day one. Even from like small decisions or big decisions, I guess, but like Figma being in a browser, right? That is so key to collaboration, because back in the day, we sent like Photoshop files around, and that was not great for collaboration. Actually, like my first internship in Sweden, we would send around like paper printed out PDFs from a Photoshop file. It was terrible, right? So that really harms collaboration. It becomes this really kind of waterfall siloed process, which I think creates worse products, right? So it's really been at the heart of Figma collaboration from day one. And really from early days, developers have been a core audience in Figma because of this. So what I and my team have done, and as we've grown and built more product, it's just about really further investing into that audience.
Yes.
So your team is focused on the experience for the developers in Figma, right?
For the developers in Figma, right? So this means building experiences for developers, building tools for them, supporting them in the collaboration with design, in the handoff process, but also in the building process of actually turning that design into real product, getting feedback on that from the designers again, and so forth, right? But we also build tools for designers. Because a lot of I'll take an example. We recently built a feature in Figma called annotations, where designers can annotate their designs with extra information, like redlining and so forth. That's very much a designer feature, but it helps developers so much, because there's so much information that just like looking at a picture of the design can't get you. Like, why did we choose to do this? Or like these like non-visual details. And while it is a tool that is used by the designer, it creates a better developer experience at the end of the day.
Okay. Before we dive more into Figma and what you're doing there, one last question to your university time, because you said like, how much of the coding did you learn at university, and how much did you learn yourself by doing it? Because it sounded a bit like, okay,
I learned 99% outside of university.
Okay.
Well, like while at university,
yeah,
right? But outside of the courses, right?
Okay.
I mean, every single, like, I'll take some examples. Like we had a class on like networking, I think. We were supposed to build like a chat application. And the specification for like what we were supposed to build was like a Java Swing chat application that worked on like local host essentially. And I was like, that sounds dumb. So I was like, it should be a iPhone app, push notifications, all this. I like blew the spec out of proportion, right? But I was like, that is the correct product to build here.
Yeah.
So I built that. I'd never done iOS programming. So I just went to my teacher. I'm like, this is dumb. Nobody's going to use this. And he was like, well, it's not supposed to be a product. I'm like, well, I want to build one, right? And he was like, sure, why not, right? So huge props to the university and the teachers there. First of all, they were always in every class so flexible that they did not really care what the end result was as long as it like showed that you understood the concepts. So when I said like, I don't want to build a Swing application, they're like, totally understand your point of view. You can build an iOS app, sure. So like then learned that. Or I talked about the graphics programming course. Like the assignment was, you know, the standard like dragon model in like 3D programming, right? The assignment was just like be able to render that. And like me and like a really good friend on the course were like, well, that's kind of dumb. Like we should build an entire like game engine with like programmable shader pipelines and all of this stuff.
Okay.
And so we ended up being like, well, the spec is like you should render a drag model. Okay. Let's actually build a museum and a playable character can walk through the museum and the dragon character is just like one of the statues in the museum and like did everything from like HDR to tone mapping to like shadows and all of this stuff. Right? And like, as I said, like a programmable shader pipeline and all of that stuff. Because we thought that was like more fun and the right thing to do, right? So always kind of went above and beyond there. And I think that's really how you excel.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. I mean, in the end, we are a developer podcast, and of course, a lot of young people also listen to it. And it's always interesting to hear the stories, how you get into tech, and what your way was, and how you were able to think that. And I think one of them is you had like an own motivation to get behind the things, to understand, to build more, to make something useful out of it, not only comply to like a schedule and learning plan that's there, but use the possibilities of technology that they have and actually learn and grow through that. So it's really a really great example, I think.
And I think that's like, that also reminds me a lot about how we operate at Figma and like the companies I go to, right?
Yeah.
Like we maybe somebody has an idea or like a seed of an idea and like, oh, we should build this. And then people around that will come in and be like, well, I think we should do like 3 times that, right? We can make this so much better. And I really have that internal motivation to just, for excellence, craft and really building really high quality, amazing experiences. And that's a lot of what kind of you see in the products we deliver at Figma.
Before we continue, I would guess that like 95% of our listeners have heard Figma before, at least, but how would you describe it in as little sentences as possible? What is Figma today?
Yeah, Figma today is an online collaborative tool that supports teams through the whole product development lifecycle, from ideation with tools we have like FigJam, an online whiteboarding tool, to visualizing with Figma Design, like doing mockups, and then like prototyping with our newly released tool like Figma Make, using AI to really bring the team together. And I think togetherness is like this core kind of piece of Figma, multiplayer and togetherness, where everybody can collaborate because the best ideas are formed together by everybody, not just the designers. And then taking those ideas, those prototypes, those visualizations, and bringing them to code through products like we have like Dev Mode or our newly released MCP server that plugs into your IDE, right? And then I think the kind of the thing that I always come back to in terms of like core principles that we use as product development at Figma is like, one, I've talked about this a lot, is like the best products are built together. Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, everybody together, even the lawyers. Like, you don't want to bring in the lawyers like 2 days before launching.
Yeah.
That's going to be a bad idea, right? Everybody should be there from the start, collaborating. That really brings the best products to life. And the second principle we have is that the first version of any product is kind of bad, right? So like iteration is really key to successful products. So when we talk a lot about like, oh, we want to enable you to go faster from like nothing to design, or faster from design to prototype, or faster from prototype to code. That's not because we're like, you know, a sweatshop, you have to get things done faster. It's to unlock more cycles of iteration, because that's what we believe create the best products and the highest quality products for users.
Awesome.
I'm always amazed of the spectrum which Figma gives you, because like I think 2 months ago we had a game jam in our company, and there were one team, just designers, I think 3 or 4 designers, and they built a prototype with Figma, showed it, and it worked, and I thought they built an app. And this is always amazing for me to see that you really go there to start the idea, but almost go there until a finished product. And this is crazy that Figma supports that and makes it really easy to do.
Yeah, it's always super fun. Like, we have this thing at Figma we call Maker Week. So other companies might call it like hackathons or something like that, or hack weeks. We specifically call it Maker Week because it's not just engineers. It's really everybody at the company like takes a break from standard work to just ideate for a week. And like the amount of awesome stuff that comes out in just days is incredible. And like the way we're able to do that is by leveraging all these aspects of Figma.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Maybe can you give some insight as a perspective into your own development team? Like, how many people work on Figma as developers?
Oh, I don't have the latest numbers
Roughly.
there. Roughly. I mean, we have a large-ish team, depending on like how you define that, right? I would say, yeah, we're always looking for more great people, but I don't have like concrete numbers to share.
Okay. And I mean, in the current space, we are all in with all the AI that comes at us. I think I imagine it's a special challenge for a company like Figma to balance on what of the aspects do you do yourself, where do you collaborate with others, because you have a product where you integrate AI to some extent. So can you get us some insights on how these decisions work, how quickly you have to change plans at the moment because something new is coming out, there's a new model, how much do you try to develop of those foundational things inside? So what's your take on how you as a company approach all that is coming at you with AI?
Yeah, I can start with like not even thinking about AI. I think like Figma's always been a company that moves really fast and just listens to customers and is really open to pivoting at like a really rapid pace. We try to build those, as we're talking about, like really quick prototypes. Iteration is what builds the best products, right? Even before AI, that's how we operated, got feedback really quickly, pivoted, seeing what kind of the customers' demands are, right? I think with kind of shifts with AI, certainly things are moving really quickly. And we're, I think, really well positioned because we had that muscle to really kind of listen to what users want, what users need, and shift very quickly. So it's been really fun to see us really play into that muscle with AI developments as well.
Is that something you test people for? I mean, is it like a special atmosphere, DNA, something that is really, yeah? Because I think not everybody is able to move in an environment that changes so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously it has to do with the people we bring in. I mean, that's in the end what culture is, right? It's the people, right? So this is definitely something that we look for as we bring people into Figma. It's obviously like very smart people who we'd want to work with, but also people who are, flexible, who like to wear many hats take on many responsibilities and roles and are open to really quickly adopting kind of new feedback.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I have a question because you already mentioned it. How does the decision process work at Figma? Because you talked about that you have an idea and other people develop this idea. Who decides then which direction you go? Is it like, do you do it in the team? How does it work?
Yeah, it depends, right? It depends on the size of the idea, I would say. Not in terms of development cost, but like in terms of the impact on the company and the users, right? How strategic of a decision that is, right? But I would say we try to make every decision as simple to make as possible. And I think this is key to any like question, is like you want to make the answer easy. That's not always possible, but most of the times it is. And how do we make these questions simple? It's like sometimes it can be by reducing the scope of the kind of initial product, for example. If you say like, oh, should we, I don't know, do this huge thing that will take 10 years? That becomes a hard decision to make. But should we spend 2 weeks trying this out and testing it with some users? No, like, yeah, of course we should, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And like another way is, right, using data, right? Seeing actually like, and I mean data not just by analytics, but it can be like qualitative data by like doing user interviews and like things like that, right? To really understand like, is this solving a need that our customers or potential customers have?
So this is another question I had. How do you validate if like the collaboration works? Because I think this is kind of hard to see in data, I think. Do you have then a lot of user interviews with customers, or how does this work?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because that collaboration is at the heart of what makes Figma successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like partially this can be seen within data, right? Like, let's take a counter example. If you saw that only people that classify themselves as designers go into Figma, then like clearly they're not really collaborating with other people there, right? So that's something we can see in the data, for example. But then, of course, we also constantly talk to users every day to really understand how they work, what works, what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, nice.
I can expand on when I say we talk to customers every day, like customers might be the wrong word. It's like customers, users, potential users every day, right? Now I also talk to like actual customers every day as well. But a big part of listening to users is really everybody using Figma, and that can come from social media or the Figma community or that comes from all over the place. And we have really a tight-knit group of people there who are just super passionate about Figma, creating for Figma. Like we have a Figma community product as well, where people are publishing things to Figma, resources for other people to use. Just like having those really passionate users really helps us also evaluate kind of early products with them in a great way.
Mm-hmm.
Is it at the same time sometimes difficult because they get used to features, or they have their own? We have it with our games, for example. There are sometimes features where only a few people use them, but they really get used to them, and they're like the core users of a feature. But for the majority of players, it's a feature that doesn't make sense anymore at some point, and they tend to get quite angry with us when we remove those features. Do you have that? Do you see that as well sometimes?
We tend to not really remove features. Yeah. That's not to say we've never done it. I'm sure we have. I can't think of a specific example, but I'm sure we have at some point, but we tend to basically not do that. And I think there will be a lot of features that only a few people use. I think that's inherent to any kind of professional creative tool, right? Whether that's in the design space or your IDE. Like if you look at the menu options, have you used every single one? Probably not, right? So there's a lot of features that are for specialized workflows, right? We have so many different kinds of people coming into Figma. Everything from like, talk about like lawyers, designers, engineers, marketing, and like, will the legal team do like vector network editing? Like, no, right? So different people will use different aspects. And this is like what makes it really hard to design Figma and why we have such a talented design team, right? How do you design a product that is easy to use, where you only need to use 5% of features, but is also easy to use when you need to use the like 95% of features and those like.
Yeah, that would have been my question. If you never remove features, I mean, it feels like it gets bloated at some point and is really overloaded with feature. And at the same time, you need to keep it somehow in one part and one idea.
Yeah, so the great thing is that these, let's call them power user features that only a few percentage points of kind of users use. These power users don't typically like need that to be a big blue button in the interface. They just need the feature to be available.
Yeah.
And we have ways to expose those features, whether it's our quick actions or our keyboard shortcuts or our menus, that these power users are very happy to use like that, right? So it's really about how we design it to work for those power users, as well as the more casual users and everything in between, whatever role you have. And then in certain cases, you know, we build entirely different products that better serve different user bases, whether that's dev mode for engineers, right? Because we know that, like, let's say specific developer tools are only used by a very small percentage of designers. So we would put them in, you know, some more hidden menu, but they're used by 90% of developers. So that's the wrong design trade-off. So the best choice was create a new product where we can optimize the interface for the developer user in dev mode. And with Figma Design, we can optimize the interface for designers. And with FigJam, we can optimize the interface for, you know, more of that ideation, the full team ideation, brainstorming, planning purposes, or, you know, with Figma Make, really that prompting, prototyping aspect of things. And the same goes for things like Figma Slides or many of our other products.
Okay, cool. What does it look behind the curtains? So from a technology side, is it like a similar tech stack around all the products you have? What powers Figma?
Yeah, so I think this is a key decision in how Figma operates from a tech stack perspective, is that we have one tech stack. Like one repo. I mean, technically, I guess we have more, but we essentially have one repo everybody works in, right? And one tech stack. And this allows us to move really fast, allows us to pivot, right? Because like this engineer over here and that engineer over there, they know the same tech stack, right? And can really shift resources onto kind of what is needed at the time. And that tech stack is, you know, we're in many ways a classic web tech stack, TypeScript and React. Actually been using TypeScript for super long, like since like the very start of TypeScript, not necessarily, but almost. And then where it gets a bit special, let's say, is the core Figma editor, which is all in C++. Through WebAssembly. So rendering with, you know, WebGL, all that is C++. So we can ensure like the best performance.
But you talked about like the dev mode being kind of like a new software. So you have the freedom to design it like you want, but isn't it, because it's really baked into Figma in the rest of the product, isn't it a hard challenge to have two products so intermingled, kind of?
You know, it becomes a design challenge, right? But one that we think is worth solving, because they have to be intermingled. Because as I went back to like the core principles that we designed by, is like the best software is made together. So if we create these very siloed products, then we actually break the collaboration model, right? Which is key to creating great software. So we knew these have to be intermingled and work seamlessly together. And that's not just dev mode and Figma design. The same goes from like Figma slides and other tools we have, right? So yeah, that was a challenge and one we tackled, and I'm really happy with the outcome.
This was one challenge. What were the biggest challenges with developing this?
Oh, there's always new challenges to come up, big and small. Hard time pointing out like the one challenge. But yeah, like we tackle like big challenges all the time, and that's what makes work fun.
Yeah, sure.
But it seems like you have a culture that makes it easy, or you're able to solve those challenges together as a team, right?
Yeah, and I think that comes down to like people are really excited to solve hard problems together, right? And that's really what we hire for in most cases, right? It's like just people who are really excited to build stuff for users, right? Really like have that user focus, but also just like be excited to solve hard problems in a really collaborative way.
And what is especially your role in this? So are you more of like coordinating the teams and putting together the right people, or do you code a lot these days?
I don't code a lot, but I do jump into the code. I wrote my last pull request maybe a couple weeks ago, right?
Nice.
So I, as a leader, I think it's super important to really understand every decision from kind of the smallest to the most strategic decision. Doesn't mean I make all the decisions, absolutely not, but I want to understand them.
Yeah.
So being in the code from time to time, I mean, I'll fix like the smallest bug that's low priority because I don't want to be in the way of my team, right? But just that helps me understand like, oh, yeah, our CI/CD is a bit slower than it should be. Now I understand those complaints coming, or like that's not necessarily the case right now. We fixed a lot there, right? But like really understanding kind of everything going on is really just important to build empathy as a leader. So I do some coding and really involved in like design decisions, technical decisions there. Really try to delegate as much of that as possible to the team, but try to be involved. And then, of course, really focus on building out the team and maintaining that culture that we've talked about as we grow.
And of course, 2025, we have to ask the question, how much AI is involved in your own development? Like, would you say you're an early adopter, or are devs very careful? What's the general take?
Yeah, I mean, whether we're an early adopter or not, I think like we use AI a ton in our own development process. Actually, like some of the graphics and the slides I'm about to present later are AI generated from Figma, right? Mm-hmm. So I use it. My team uses it a lot. I would say most. I mean, I haven't gone to every single developer, but most developers are in Cursor, and using that to help power their development and accelerate that, and using things like our new MCP server for Figma to like much further accelerate that kind of, spec in Figma to code, get that first draft out quickly so they can focus on the hard parts, right? Not just copy pasting values, things like that. So used a lot. I think like one that I was really excited about was like Claude Code. We've been using a bit. I'd say like somewhat less heavily used, but because it's used in different ways, I would say. It's more like do a prompt and come back 20 minutes later or whatever it is, right? So we've seen some managers who are mostly sitting in meetings fire off prompts between meetings to build prototypes, right? And it's like super good, where they don't necessarily have the 4 hours to sit and code all the time, but they're like, I have this idea that for a prototype, and they use that in combination with Figma Make to prototype out the front end. And they do that in between meetings. And then at the end of the day, it's like, here, I think this is maybe a direction to explore. And using like Claude Code for like mostly prototyping backend stuff and Figma Make for the front-end stuff helps them be able to like have that kind of impact where they weren't able to before.
Yeah, sure.
And is there something that is like mandatory for developers to use some extent, or is it natural that it comes? Or how do you push that development into your community?
You know, I don't believe in making tools mandatory. I believe in developers being smart enough to use the tools that accelerate their development best, right? So, like for example, like we don't enforce the use of even our own products. I would say, like, everybody uses them because they think they're the best, right? But like we don't force people to use, say, the MCP server we built, right? A lot of people do because it makes them a whole lot faster, right? And I think this is important because if we forced, especially on our own products, because if we forced the usage, then we would look at and say, oh, well, all of Figma uses it, so it must be great, right? But if we say, use it only if you feel it's good, and then everybody uses it, we're like, okay, it's good, right? So it's really important for us to evaluate if things are worth it or not. And then different workflows will, you know, different tools will be good for different workflows.
True. But I think it's for us, it's a hard problem to get the developers to try it out even. Because I think they tried it in a small scope or maybe even too big scope, and then they didn't have so much fun, and then they don't come back. So I think this is the...
Yeah, so we do a lot of, I guess, like sharing within Figma, right? So this is not specific to AI in any way, right? But for example, my team, what we do is every Friday we have a whole organization-wide, we call it show and tell. And here it's everything from like research, showing some new research, to designers some new designs, or engineers some new like feature they've built or whatever. But it's also engineers showing like, hey, I adopted this workflow recently that has like really, really improved kind of my development, right? So like in the advent of a lot of these AI tools, right, we're getting a lot more like show and tell demos that are like, look what AI helped me to do and how it fits into my workflow. And that gets repeated time and time again. You know, automatically, it's not me saying, you should really, really do this, right? It kind of comes naturally from the team, and that knowledge spreads, and then people try and see kind of what it can do and adopt it in their workflows.
Yeah, that's great. How much time do you take for it on Fridays? Like what's time
half an hour.
Half an hour. All right.
Half an hour.
But it's live, right? It's not like...
Yeah, live.
Okay.
Live.
Nice.
Live half an hour every week.
Nice.
Cool.
As the team grows, we might need to extend it to 45 minutes, but yeah, we're hitting the barrier now on half an hour. But
I love that. That's a good concept. Yeah. Cool. Any more questions, Garrett?
Yeah, probably a lot, but I think it's good for now for me.
Yeah, what do you all want to talk about? What are you interested about?
I mean, we already asked quite a lot of questions. So I think we already got a good overview of what you're up to, what Figma is up to, how you're structured, and what you think is important for the development process and therefore for the whole company as well. I think there were already many insights interesting. Emil, is there anything you would have liked to be asked?
No, I thought your questions were great. But the thing I like, the message I would really want to get across, right, is like back to what I talked about around these core principles that I at least really aspire to and design products for, which is like the best products from the best companies are built when working together. Everybody, the whole team. And that's really what we built for solving, whether that's with dev mode to really increase that collaboration, or like, I'm really, really excited about Figma Make because it allows developers to come in and like, they don't need to know the full professional design tool, but can quickly be like, what if it looked like this instead, right? Bringing in that collaboration, or somebody from marketing or whatever, right? But that, like Figma Make really allows that collaboration to happen in a very different way. And then the second principle is, right, as I said, like the first version of a product isn't super good always. So like iteration is key to making great products. And my goal is to enable companies that currently like just make one iteration and ship it, or 5 iterations. Like, how do we enable them to go through 500 ideas to make sure they're building the best thing? And this is where I think like AI plays an exceptionally strong role, even though this has been like a core principle since prior to AI, right?
Yeah.
But like like with AI, like now you can, with say Figma Make, you can, make 50 prototypes in the time you can make 5. Or like back in the day when we needed to like code up all the prototypes, it would take a week per prototype or a couple of days per prototype. Now you can make 200 in a day, right? So you can go through the idea maze and make sure you're building the right product. Because like, sure, it might take a bit longer to go through a lot of ideas, but it saves you time from launching the wrong product, noticing you launched the wrong product, going back to the drawing board. Like that takes years, right?
Yeah.
So let's make sure you can like go through all these ideas really quickly. I think our tools within Figma Design, FigJam, Figma Make really, really help with this. And then like on the more production side as well, like Figma's MCP server really helps with this as well, because a lot of prototypes maybe you actually need to integrate into your existing code base, right? Test it out. So if you can like go from a mockup in Figma to have it working in your code base within minutes, right? Through like the MCP knows about all the design context, because Cursor knows about your existing code, but it doesn't know what you're trying to build.
Yeah.
It just knows what you've already built, right? So bringing that context in, it being like using your design system, it knows about what that mockup is in Figma, where you collaborated on it and so forth, allows you to like pull out those iterations much, much more quickly in your production code base as well. Again, ensuring you're building the right thing, because that's the most important thing, right? So those are really the core principles we design all kind of our current and kind of future products around.
Yeah, I mean, the handoff process is probably the hardest in such a development. And I think from going to a prototype with Make and giving it to the designers, and they can just expand this work, and then getting it back to the code within MCP server, which is so flexible, is like, sounds like the whole process is just...
Yeah, and the important thing is like, right, this is like a circular process, right? Once it's in your code base, it's like, should go back to the design and go back and forth like 100 times before you ship it to users, right? And like, we want to be able to make sure you can do those 100 iterations in as fast time as possible. So it doesn't take you 5 years to build a new product. No, like it should take as long time to build the product, or hopefully less time, but have like 10 times the iterations. So you make sure you build the right product.
Yeah. It's fantastic times, actually, to be a developer and to be in that space, I would say. It's really exciting. The speed of development is just great. And Emil, it was wonderful having you on the podcast and hearing your perspective on the current developments and hearing more about Figma and how you develop it. So thank you very much for taking the time here at We Are Developers. And you'll have a talk this afternoon.
5:30, I think.
5:30.
Yeah.
So we'll try to join us as well.
Sure.
And I think it's recorded for anybody listening as well.
Perfect.
So people will be able to see it. But yeah, it was super fun to do this with you. And hopefully we see each other more during the day.
I hope so.
Thank you so much
for taking the time. Thank you.